Will Garrett Nussmeier be drafted in the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft? We break down why that might not be as realistic of a possibility as many believe. LSU's Garrett Nussmeier has been one of the most controversial quarterback names in the 2026 NFL Draft. The potential is there, the arm talent is there, but Ryan, where do you sit? Do you think that this is a guy worthy of going in the first round?
I'm very conflicted with him, Joe, admittedly, because I do think there's a lot of good on film, right? Like, I do think that there are some touch throws, some anticipatory throws that kind of catch your attention. There's some throws where he's able to stick in the pocket and throw against pressure, working and layering the ball to the second and third levels. Like, there is some really good stuff, but ultimately I am still very hesitant on Garrett Nussmeier. And my biggest worry about him is the work against pressure. Like, there are just some horrible turnovers on film, some fumbles, some bad interceptions, not seeing, different variations of coverages from a post-snap perspective. And then ultimately, his pocket management against pressure leaves a lot to be desired. It's okay sometimes, it's horrible others. He needs to be a lot more comfortable working against pressure in 2025 in order to make a big jump.
I have a late second round grade on him for a lot of the reasons that you just said. You see the flashes. He's got a plus arm. He's able to drive the ball down the field very quickly. He's able to attack very tight windows. And more importantly, one of the things that I love for quarterback prospects are guys that are decisive and aggressive, guys that have the arm to pressure defenses and to drill the ball into those tight windows and to connect. But for what you just talked about strikes a lot of fear in me because the decision-making isn't there. And a lot of times guys that make bad decisions the same way that Garrett Nussmeier does don't typically suddenly improve and have more natural feel for how to navigate pressure the way that you just described.
Right.
I think that it is going to be debilitating if he can't at least show a step forward this year for LSU. And if he continues to put on tape what you just brought up of the minute that he sees pressure, he panics. He makes the worst decision possible. It leads to back-breaking turnovers that completely derails games and drives for this team. And the biggest part about it that I feel like almost doesn't get talked about enough, he's got really bad short-term memory. That is something that is so bad for quarterbacks that if you make one mistake, how do you come back on the next drive? It feels like he's one of these guys that it just constantly compounds and gets worse and worse, and then he shows a ton of timidness as the game progresses when he's having a rough start.
Can I tell you one thing that I hate, Joe? I hated last season. There was a Tony Romo comp that was being thrown about with Garrett Nussmeier. And I think that is one of the worst comps I've ever heard. Because what did Tony Romo do that was so impressive? His ability to extend the football and work against pressure he made some magic happen at times. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, sees the game pretty quickly, which makes sense of, who his father is and just his family in general. Like, he comes from a football family. And I think there are moments where against pressure, he gets the ball out fast and finds his check down, finds his outlet, and everything works in structure well. My problem is that when he gets deeper into progressions and now he has to evaluate pressure when things aren't clear and things aren't open, that's when he starts to make really bad decisions to hold the ball too long, spin out against non-pressure into pressure. Like, those are the circumstances deeper into the play where I think that is just that's his kryptonite, ultimately. I don't think this is a great athlete for NFL standards. I think this is a below average athlete at the quarterback position, and his work outside of structure, I think, is always going to leave a little bit to be desired. It's going to be very volatile, which is why I think ultimately there are some limitations to him from a ceiling perspective.
What did you grade him at this current moment?
I'm a third round grade on him. Again, I think there's some things to like. I think there's some developmental upside, but the things that he doesn't do well right now give me extreme pause as an evaluator just over the years. That ability to evaluate and work against pressure is something that I think you need, and I think that that's just kind of missing in his game right now.
To quickly highlight his background, you just mentioned his dad, Doug Nussmeier, who is the Saints offensive coordinator, so that is going to be a fun storyline to track when he does declare if he'll be in consideration for becoming a New Orleans Saint. But when he came out in the 2021 class, much older prospect than some of these other guys that we've been talking about, he was, per the 247 Sports composite, 14th ranked quarterback in the class, 15th ranked quarterback in the state of Texas, and 84th recruit overall. So he's got a big background and pedigree of football. And it's kind of funny to look back at some of the other names, by the way, in his class of Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, and JJ McCarthy.
Well, and there's another Nussmeier coming down the pipeline, man. 2027 quarterback Colton Nussmeier, right? So like we're not done talking about the Nussmeier family going into the future, but again, I think there's some parts of Garrett's game that showcase that he has been around football for a long time. I do think he sees the game pretty well, and I think he's processing when he gets the ball out of his hand in structure. I think that you see a lot of Doug there, right? Like you see a lot of because Doug Nussmeier was previously with he's been an NFL coach for a long time, but he's previously with the Philadelphia Eagles and their Super Bowl run, right? So seeing the progression with quarterbacks, I think makes a lot of sense that he is that cliche of a coach's son. But the Nussmeier family runs deep in the recruiting world, and we're not going to be done talking about them anytime soon.